Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Troy.
And I'm Ben-Jamin Toy.
We're broadcasting from the Cohesion Culture headquarters in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, where even when it rains, the sun still shines.
You're going to hear real-time stories from leaders confessing their most crucial or recent uh-oh experiences in business.
Learn what their uh-oh cost them, steps they took to fix it, and how they planned
to not do that one again.
All right. Welcome, Cohesive Leaders. Ben-Jamin with Dr. Troy on the road, joined by David Price. Excited to have you here, David.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. Well, we even started with almost an uh-oh. I realized during the intro that I still had my other shirt on and had to do a wardrobe change in the middle of all that. So that was going to get funny. So I was hoping I wasn't getting caught when with mid wardrobe change. So this is fun. All right.
Yes, because Dave, it is because I have seen Ben, and it's not a good thing. So
no. I'm wearing a sweater, no matter what I'm wearing. Sorry. Yes. Sorry for the visual for the listeners there. So David, we want to get to know you. We want our listeners to get to know you. Could you share something about yourself that would not be found on a resume or a LinkedIn profile? Something personal, something unique, but something that's not there documented for typically anybody to find.
Yeah, I struggled with a drug addiction for 20 years and got clean and sober in 2013. So just celebrated 12 years of sobriety in July. And, obviously not doing drugs changed my life, but like learning those principles and using those into business, it's been helping me have a lot of success.
Congrats, man. I know that's been a struggle.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
No problem. I don't put on my resume, but you guys asked for a good one, so that was it. But I do talk about it publicly because I want people to have a hope and realize no matter what kind of situation they may be in, there's a chance for success for sure.
And I'm sure
that is true because what breaks the cycle of helplessness is hope, and hope comes with the future. So having clarity of mind allows you to really focus on your future and what that will look like.
Absolutely. I always like to say I like to bring the message of hope.
That's good. And I'm sure that's something we could dive into on some uh-ohs that were made there, but that's not what today's show is probably going to be about because you have learned from it. The next stage, the next level of getting to know you, David, is we want to know who you are, your identity. What are behaviors, character traits that your friends, family, enemies, coworkers would describe you as, or things you want to aspire to be? I want to know the character traits of who you are, not roles or hats, right? So let's remove roles and hats that you wear, but let's talk about who you are as a person.
Yeah, so as a person, I'm just totally obsessed. I have really strong focus. I just latch on to one thing and just do the same thing over and over again. I tend to be able to eliminate emotion out of most of my decision making. So realistically, I mean, everything that I feel like will makes you a good entrepreneur, right? Is just being able to just do those do those things just over and over and over again that most people don't like doing.
How does that impact you on relationships?
Not great at all. Personal relationships would be something I'm weaker at, right? I take my business very, very serious. It's in terms of like I'm trying to get to like that, the level of success I want to get to, and then maybe at that point, start not putting so much focus into it. But it's also helped me have a lot of success in a short period of time, considering, right, being an entrepreneur could take a long time to have success. But yeah, the personal relationships, now that I'm, into, I guess, my 7th year of business, I do start working now a little bit more on the personal stuff, relationships with my family and the people around me. But the first 3-4 years definitely fell short in that area of my life.
I wanted to ask, how does that impact your business? No, given that so much of the work that we might do from a consulting or from even a service providing, business, it's all so much is based on relationship. I mean, everything that Ben and I do is always about connection before content, which is why we're asking you these questions before we jump into the program today. So, how has that mindset impacted your relationship with like employees and vendors, partners, things like that?
Yeah, so I think those relationships I do a really good job with. Actually, I feel like that's probably one of my strengths. I hire over 100 insurance agents a month, so I have a large team of insurance agents that work, and they work virtually, right? So that we're not working in person. So basically, relationships built on Zoom, built on phone calls, or built on like short company like trips or incentive trips or leadership trips that we're having. But I feel like the bond that we created is definitely a strong bond, but a lot of that's done in building trust, right? At the end of the day, it's like, if you're an entrepreneur, you're looking for someone to lead you. And if you could build that trust, then the relationship gets stronger.
Absolutely. And trust is one of the foundations of a commitment, which is agreement and need and trust. So to have collaboration with somebody, you need that trust there as well. All right. Hats you wear. You mentioned, you started alluding and talking about the insurance agent. What do you do there? Give us your pedigree as far as corporately. You said the business has only been 7 years. So give us a little bit of background historically on what you've done, what you've accomplished there or not accomplished, what you attempted, and what you're doing now, and any other hats you have personally.
Yeah, of course. I got my insurance license in 2018. So I started, didn't know anything about the business, had a plan to grow a business, and knew that there was going to be a long journey of pain and suffering to learn that, right? Because that's just how things start when you start a business, right? A lot of unknowns. So since 2018, we've done about $60 million in business, helped about 60,000 clients. And when I say that number, I think about that, and it wasn't like it wasn't the same every year, right? We had exponential growth year over year. Just a year ago, started a new company from scratch, and we were able to do 10 million in our first 350 days. And I chalk that up to one, having the right relationships in place now and not starting from scratch anymore, right? And then also having the knowledge, the wisdom, and the experience to be able to start from zero and have that kind of success. Because this month will probably be our best month ever in business, and it's right at that year point, which something that really took me 5 or 6 years to get here the first time around.
What about any other hats or things personally, professionally, besides those exact businesses?
Yeah, so I as far as personally, I like to work out. I make it pretty non-negotiable to go to the gym every morning. I like hiking, mountain biking, anything to do with the outdoors. I also am on the longevity journey of trying to slow down my rate of aging. Been doing that for about 2 years, but started actually testing for speed of aging about a year ago. And the first one I was very disappointed with a 1.29, which means I was actually aging faster than my biological age. And then 4 months later, I was able to get that to 0.98, which was, typical, right? So it wasn't anything to be excited, but we just took another test. Yeah, right underneath, right? So like basically felt like a lot of work and no results. But just got it down to 0.88 at my last test. So basically slow down the rate, and I should be happy even at 1-to-1, considering all the abuse I did to my body, with being a recovering drug addict. So excited about that. So realistically, I work out. I like the outdoors, but the majority, 95% of my time and my focus and my energy is just working on my business and creating a business.
So what I would tell you is that in describing yourself, when you're looking for characteristics, what I hear from you more than anything is discipline, determination, rigor, focus, and which are really good components, right, to help you kind of move yourself forward. And I do like the fact that although you said relationships, I got a better understanding that you were talking about maybe personal relationships with people maybe very close to you, that was not a negative toward the individuals that you're working in your business. So thanks for clarifying all of that. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So
I think
now that we've
psychotic
got
might be a
oh, psychotic, yeah.
psychotic. I feel like psychotic might be a good word, and what people might classify me in a positive psychotic way.
Yeah. Okay.
But yes,
So that's all right. Little chaos every now and then is good. So we'll take that. But now that we've gotten a chance to know who you are, but both your identity and your roles, now let's talk about your experience that you're going to share. Now, as a reminder, the listeners are individuals who are, unhappy with their maybe current work situation because they're not getting the training and development they deserve. They're being passed over for promotion with no plan for improvement. So what we help them do is to see that they can learn through mishaps and mistakes. And so what experience are you going to share with us today?
yeah. So, man, I have so many, and I feel like that's part of the success, right? Is being okay with making mistakes and being okay with going through that process. But what you stated is also learning for people's mistakes, and that's something that's a big part of my journey now. Is I have no problem reaching out for help to somebody that would maybe just further down the road than me because they've been doing it longer. But there's two mistakes that come to mind. One, I was creating leads for hiring insurance agents, and we were spending about $20,000 a month on Facebook ads to create leads. And what we're doing with these leads is getting them to automatically book counter appointments with my recruiting team. And we got to the end of the year, and I'm looking at the data and I'm looking at everything. And what I realized is I was doing such a great job of making sure the recruiters always had somebody booked on their calendar that actually created $100,000 worth of leads throughout the year that never got a call. And obviously the year's over, and I'm looking at the data, and I'm like, wow. So I spent $250,000, and 100,000 of this just got thrown away. So that was definitely a big mistake that we made, right? So then it really had me start thinking about following up processes, figuring out what is the how many people should be on my recruiter, like on a calendar, right? So and that could be anything, right? It doesn't have to be hiring agents. That could be making sales, right? And so I believe in creating more leads than could be worked, but I think I went overboard on that.
So what was the human side for you? So we get it that yes, we put out money for this as a business owner, and I didn't capitalize on all of the potential revenue that was there. And that's great. That's a business learning experience. But how did it impact you personally? Like what were some of the feelings that you were going through with this? Like, holy crap, I can't believe this. Or, did you say to yourself, gosh, I'm such an idiot? I mean, I don't know. Like, what happened to you when you recognized that? What were your feelings and emotions?
Yeah, so I had an operations manager that was over all of recruiting, right? So the first thing is like, all right, well, why did he miss it, right? That's the first thing, is looking at, because I remember when I noticed it, and then I asked him about it, and he was just like, yeah, you're right, David, you're right, and so that was the first thing. But then the second thing is like stepping back and be like, all right, what's my responsibility in this? A lot of times, in life and business, whatever it is, like it's real easy to point the finger, but like why did he miss that? And like, where's my responsibility? And what could I have done better? And that showed me, because what I was doing is I was working on eliminating myself from the business as much as possible, and then it's like, all right, well, maybe I did it too fast, or maybe I did it without making sure the proper systems were in place. Or maybe I shouldn't be eliminating myself yet. Maybe we're not big enough. Or maybe I didn't put the right person in charge of that, you know, and I think that's what it ended up being. You know, I had a person, and he was an operations manager. He started as a recruiter, moved him into operations man, and he did an amazing job to get us to a certain level. But what I realized, and what I started learning in business, is like people can get you to a certain level, but sometimes you need somebody else to help you to get to that next level. So it's really like understanding that, and that was a big lesson on that. So, and then I started looking at other things, and what I realized is the person that was going to be in charge of my operations, which is, you know, a huge part of my business, which is basically running majority of my business. I started looking at him like, wait a second, he's not really innovating, right? He's not innovating. You know, times are changing real fast, right? We got AI, like we have so many different things right now. I mean, it's such a exciting time to be in business, right? Especially with AI and all the tools that brings. So then I started realizing that, you know, this isn't the right person, or I need to try to train him up, right? So that's what I started doing. I started focusing on getting him trained to be the person I want him to be, which I think ended up causing him to be uncomfortable, and he ended up finding another job after being with me for years. But I think it was better for the business, because then it focused, got me back in the trenches to where I needed to be to really feel the pulse of the company and be able to make decisions.
Find this accountability, and it's great that you mentioned the blame, and that, because we have this little section in our book, Becoming a Cohesive Leader. It's about the no blame game. My mom had this, you know, very strong leadership philosophy that says that if you have to tear down other people to build yourself up, you weren't that good to begin with. So obviously when you're trying to blame others, that's kind of what's happening. So you recognized quickly that wasn't the case. You took accountability. How did that accountability either stop you or encourage you?
So unlike most people, I actually like when I find problems or mistakes in my business, and I like when there's like an issue, like oh man, I've been doing this wrong, right? To me, that's great, because we're having a ton of success. I mean, we'll help over 1,500 clients this month, right? So huge numbers, a ton of success. So when I find something, I'm like, oh wow, I'm doing this wrong. I'm excited about it, because I'm like, all right, what happens when I figure out how to do this right? You know, so same thing, and it might cause some discomfort, but again, like if you really think about like business or like life or sports or any of that stuff, like the growth comes in those uncomfortable situations. So for me, it was like, all right, well, this sucks and wasted a whole bunch of money, and this happened and this happened and this happened, but that's good, because we're going to learn and we're going to grow from this, right? So it's like really important to understand that. So to me, you know, taking a step back in my business has always helped me propel forward.
David, you've said something that is actually a resounding theme, of course, in the messaging that we get from our guests, right? That you have to learn from mistakes. But I want to dive deeper into the sense that basically this mistake was a six-figure mistake, that you looked in the mirror and it came back to you. And how did you get to the point where you realized, oh, I need these things to tweak? Like, where did the mindset come from? How did you develop the mindset knowing that mistakes were not fatal? Like, and that you were okay with losing some money, but you were still profitable. So it wasn't probably a dire situation. Don't put words in your mouth that they're not there, but like, how did you get to the mindset of being okay? Because you've only been in business for a little while. How did you get there?
Yeah. So, you know, you said something super important, and you said I was still profitable. And I think a lot of times in business, too many people are so worried about like the ROI, like too early on, you know? And for me, like, yes, you need to be profitable and you need to pay your bills. But I want to drive production, right? I want to do everything I can to get my revenue as high as possible. And, you know, sometimes that is wasting leads, or sometimes that's creating more leads that could actually be worked. And sometimes that's, you know, hiring contractors. Like sometimes you have to go through all these processes, right? But, you know, a lot of times, like I've wasted so much money. But what it did was it showed me what not to do, you know, what I need to focus on, right? You know, like, all right, well, that didn't work, or I thought that would be better than what I was doing, so let me focus back on what I was doing. So for me, like, it's all a win, right? So like, think about people pay money for books, right? We were talking about books earlier. They pay for courses, they pay for coaches, they pay for education, right? So for me, that's it. Like, it's all education, right? It was $100,000 lesson. Like that problem will never happen again. And I'm glad it happened when my ad spend was $20,000 a month and not $120,000 a month, right? So for me, it's always a win, as long as, right, you're still paying the bills. So I think for me is like, the goal is to create as much revenue as I can, spend whatever you need to do that, build the machine, and then come back and then look at your processes, and then you start like optimizing for profitability, right? And then, you know, at that point, you know, maybe you're optimizing for profitability for the sale of your business or whatever that is. So, and where did I learn that like mistakes weren't fatal? You know, again, we started the conversation with my drug addiction, right? So like, there's so many things and mistakes I made in my life. And at first I was like, so beating myself up about it. Like, oh my God, I wasted so much time in my life, and I did this and I did this, and I could have been this, I could have been more productive. Or, you know, what if I found insurance when I was 18 instead of when I was, you know, in my 30s, and all these different things like come to my mind. And then I realized like I had to go through all those mistakes to become the person I am today, to have a chance to be able to lead people in the way that I lead people, and like understand business in the way that I can. And the biggest thing, and like probably the number one thing that has helped me with my success is like removing the ego and like understanding, right? Because in my 20s, or if I got my insurance license when I was 18, I would have too big of an ego to like learn anything, ask for help. And I probably would have not had any kind of not the type of success that I'm having now, right? So like, I wasn't prepared for that situation.
I think the ego piece is a big
Amen,
part
brother.
here.
Amen, brother. Keep preaching. That's great.
So I want you to translate that mindset. Then how would you coach a 25-year-old in that sense, right? You know, I think at the very end, that ego piece is a big part. But let's say they're working a job and they're not in control, and there might be some issues if they didn't catch an overspend, right? Or a miss thing. How can they translate that mindset into their job?
Yeah. I mean, if you're working a job, I think you know, and I always like to think about like myself. So like, cause I worked a ton of jobs. I was always like an entrepreneur by heart, but I worked in so many different careers trying to find my way. And I think the one thing that I did well is when I worked a job is like, I treated it as if it was my business, right? So like, I didn't just do the minimum, right? A lot of times people are going to work. They're like, all right, well, work starts at 9 o'clock. So I'll get there at 9 o'clock, and work's done at 5. So I'll try to get out the door by 5, right? So like, to me, like you're an employee working as an employee, right? So if you want to be a business owner, or you want a raise, or like you want to better your situation, whatever that is, and however you want to define that, then it's like real simple. It's like, you know, do everything you're doing to the best of your ability, regardless of like who's watching you or who's not watching you, right? And if you like practice that every day of your life, again, like that's when I got clean, it's like that's what it came down to, is like be the best that person I can be, or like beat yesterday, or just try to be 1% better every single day. And that was like, you know, with my health, I wasn't very healthy when I first got clean, or, you know, and every day I'm just trying to like optimize the different parts of my life, right? So like, if you're an employee, it's like, how do you become the best employee that you can be? Like, what are you doing? Are you just doing the minimum, or are you like trying to find ways to optimize? You know, are you looking for different things that you can do? I remember when I was working as an employee, I was working overnight shift, and I had this audit form, and they want me to like start doing audits. I'm looking at this form, I'm like, dude, this form looks so clunky. It looks horrible. So I spent like all this downtime I normally would have had, right? Because it was like night shift, you know, just kind of watching the phones. So instead of just sitting there doing nothing, I like redid this entire form, and I sent it to my boss. Like, hey, I did the form. I don't know if you like it or not, but like, hey, I had time last night, so I did this. You know, the CEO of the company ended up giving me a bonus for it because it looked that much better, right? So now I feel good about it. But again, it's like doing things like that is probably why I'm good as an entrepreneur, because a lot of times people want to become an entrepreneur, but like they still act like an employee. But the problem is now they act like an employee without a boss, which means what? They don't show up to work. They don't work late. They don't work weekends. Like, they're not worried about production, right? They're playing taxi driver for their family. They're picking them up at the airport. They're going grocery shopping in the middle of the day. All these things you would not have done if you're an employee, but that's what happens. So like, if you're looking to be a business owner, like, act like you're a business owner now while you're working a job, right? Because that's the person you're going to need to be if you want to have success as a business owner.
And what you just did, David, was put to life a message that we have consistently put out there that says, act like the career you want, not the job you have. Thank you for doing that.
And we start all of our programs, our online coaching programs, A, to agree that you're teachable, B, to agree that you're a leader, because everybody's a leader, but also that you're the CEO of a company. Like, make your decisions, go through the process. So what you're preaching is what we're aligning and what we're teaching in the leadership side of things. So for anybody listening, that's it. Go. I mean, and Troy said it, so we don't have to go into that anymore, but it's the mindset of do the things that the position above and ahead of you would be, not just what you're being asked to do. So go above and beyond, go that extra mile. So, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, it's like, it's easy to look back, like, after you have success, right? They'd say, what, hindsight's 2020. But again, it should be such common sense, and a lot of times what people will say is they're like, oh, don't worry, like, while I'm working this job, I'm going to relax. But when I become a business owner, then I'm going to do this, this, and this. It doesn't start like, it's like New Year's resolutions. Like, what I always say is, like, whatever the goal is for New Year's, right? And I'm always making goals. To me, like, New Year's doesn't make anything special. Matter of fact, like, I look at, like, it's October 27th as we shoot this. I think about, like, now, like, whatever it is that I want to do January 1st, like, for instance, I want to start doing a lot more on YouTube. Like, that starts now. Like, it starts now. So hopefully I have the momentum and everything's flowing the way it should be flowing. So come January 1st, it's happening. So same thing, like, if you're like, yeah, I'm going to lose 20 pounds for the new year, good. Like, start now, because just because you decide to start dieting on January 1st, it doesn't mean you're going to have some pitfalls. You're going to fall short some days. You're going to fall off your diet. Like, you need to, like, practice those things now. So same thing, like, if you want to be a business owner, like, don't think, like, just because you woke up one day and say, oh, today I'm going to act like I have all the skills and everything that I need to do it, that you're going to have it. Like, no, you need to build those skills and earn those skills. Like, the discipline I have today isn't the same discipline I had 10 years ago, right? It's from practicing over and over again, from keep doing the things I don't want to do over again. It's understanding that the boring stuff is actually the stuff that's going to give you success.
Of understanding quite as simple as intentions versus intentionality. And that's what you just described. I have good intentions to start in January, but what is my intentionality about starting it today? Because the reality is that once you actually speak it into existence, it starts at that moment. And your brain doesn't understand waiting. It doesn't understand the not or the negative side. So speaking that positively and putting it in action today doesn't make it less impactful because you were trying to make a New Year's resolution. I like to make an everyday resolution, quite frankly. So if I have something I want to work at, I'm going to start now. I'm not waiting. So really awesome. Good messaging. I wanted to know if, you've said so many really great things. I wanted to know if you can recap for us some of the steps you've taken when you recognize, and more general, like when you recognize a mistake and you have accountability, tell us just, in a few words, like what you do to do that. I know you said a lot of things already, but we want to get a quick recap for us.
Yeah. So I mean, when I find a mistake or there's something wrong or something, I mean, the first, like the number one thing that I have to do is like realize it's my fault. Like that's like number one, because if it's not your fault, then you can't change it. Right. So like, if it's your fault, then like I'm screwed because I can't change you. Right. I could hope or try or want to, but like I have a lot of control over me. Right. I can do that. So the first thing is like figuring out like, where's my responsibility in this? And it's my fault. So once I know it's my fault, it's like, all right, what did we learn from this? is real simple, right? You know, what did we learn? Because a lot of times people look at like mistakes as this negative thing. But like, if you look at all the greatest things that happen, right? The light bulb's a great, example, right? You figure out like what didn't work, like, and why did this mistake happen? Like there's a lesson from it. So you don't want to look at it as like this negative thing. You want to look at it as this positive. And then once you have this lesson and you understand like why this happened, then it's like, all right, what do we put in place to make sure this doesn't happen again? Right. And could be a process. It could be a person. It could be a 1,000 different things. But, for me, it's like ending the day and thinking about like, what happened today that I didn't like, or what happened today that caused me stress. And it's like, once you realize like what caused me stress today, then it's like, all right, what's the solution to get rid of that? And that's like the same process is like, to me, I want such a simple, streamlined life that like everything just happens perfect all the time, right? It's not right feasible, but it's like when you chase that greatness and you chase that, well, then you start optimizing everything.
Yeah, and you really helped us to shape the definition of what it means to say that it's not the successes or failures that shape your life, it's how you handle them. And certainly have given us a lot of really great information on how to handle things. So with all of this great information, I know our listeners who are going to want to connect with you at some point in time. How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, you can find me on all the social media handles, David Price Official, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, X, I am David Price. And you can find me at any of those. Shoot me a follow, send me a message. If there's any way I could help you out, feel free to ask me questions. I try to answer all my DMs. It takes a while sometimes, but I do believe I reply back to all my DMs, and would love to help anyone in any way that I can with their journey.
That's great. And David, as you were preparing for today, I'm sure you thought a lot of questions that we may ask. What's a question that you prepared for today that we didn't ask you?
That's the hardest question you asked so far. I do quite a bit of podcasts, and I find that I operate the best. I like to say like when God's in control, and I don't typically prepare for podcasts. I jump on there and I just feel like the right questions are going to come and the right answers are going to come out of me. And so far that's been working quite well for me. I feel like when I do prepare, when I'm speaking on stage or something, and I do prepare and I get real detail into a script, I feel like that's where I'm controlling it more and not just letting it flow the way it should flow.
Interesting. Awesome.
On the podcast today, you've been an awesome guest, given a lot of really great material, and I really am going to encourage our listeners to make sure we close out all of our Cohesion culture.
I'm just going to mute him because we can't hear him. So we end all of our programs with the statement of, you don't have to know everything. You just need to be teachable.